Welcome everybody. Thank you for giving up your lunch to join us today. Be of interest and use to you. I'll start by very quickly introducing myself. I'm Jo Stanford. I head up the Corporate Portfolio Office for Health Education England. That's my day job. My other hat is I am Head of Project Profession for HE, and I work with my counterparts in the ALBs and also regionally to develop the project profession for the NHS as a whole, hence the very lovely branding that we've got. So NHS Project Futures is a collaborative of professionals supporting the development of the profession within the NHS. And I'm going to very quickly tell you about that programme and where this fits into it, because you might not all be aware of that currently. So Mike is part of the team. He's doing all of the training and development element of it, capability framework, etc. And he plays a really pivotal role in delivery of this. So NHS Project Futures is a collaborative. We have a vision for the project profession in the NHS, and that vision is to kind of attract, develop, retain project professionals, practitioners, ensuring the NHS has the capacity and capability to deliver sustainable change to the system and for the benefits of patients. And that's what we're aiming to do by bringing people together and upskill them. It's a 5-year programme, so we work together to support the government to develop its profession, and then in light of that, we're the profession within the NHS. And at the moment, we're working through the bit about the competency framework, the education programmes, and looking at talent management and career support for people within the profession. There are a number of strands to delivery of this particular programme, and as I said, we're working with people all across the organisation to develop, the various elements of it, of which apprenticeships and programmes are part of that. We have an operating model that's kind of part collaborative and part building into the system. We have an existing community of practice. If you aren't already part of that community, do sign up, because a lot of our resources, events, activities, and also networking stuff goes on in the community in Knowledge Hub. So if you're not signed up, please do. We also have regional leads, so we have volunteers in each of the regions apart from the Southeast. If you're in the Southeast and you'd like to be involved, do let us know, because we need somebody to represent the community within the Southeast region. And these regional leads are working with us to help to shape and develop the profession, but also to support the community within that area and to build a network of project professionals within that region. So if you're not connected either with us or with them, do let us know so that we can put you in touch and help to build that network. Together we came as a regional and kind of national group to develop the profession, and we did a really great visioning of it in Lego, and that helped us structure it. We've done some workforce data analysis in ESR that looks at people, and this is tricky because we can't identify project professionals from a category code at the moment. We can only use job title, and we know that misses out quite a few people. But we had to take programme out as well, because that's used in so many different ways. But it's a growing industry. We estimate there's about 10 to 12,000 people working in project management, project delivery overall. And it's doubled in terms of the growth of roles within the NHS in the last 6 years. So we think as a profession, the trajectory of it is going to increase. So this is a good profession to be in, particularly given the current, volatile times and the need to deliver new. Number of programme is going to be one of them. And we've got Project to Change Academy on e-learning for healthcare, covering the basics of project management, change and benefits management. There's also one there for the SROs. We have the apprenticeship programs, and we have corporate membership with the APM. So if you join one of the education programs, because you are a student of effectively an apprenticeship program, you get student membership with the APM, which means access to their learning and development resources. We also have access through our corporate membership of the APM. So if you aren't registered, we can connect you with those details as well. Lots of great stuff there to help develop your learning and also support development of your career. Community of practice on Knowledge Hub, I've mentioned that already. Do get connected in. Lots of great stuff in there. There's an internal one, and I imagine you have your own catalogue of learning and development resources. And we also recommend career coaching as well if you're unsure about direction of travel. And your head of profession should be able to support you with that and help your development. So we have the Academy, I mentioned that. We're talking about the apprenticeships now, APM corporate membership, and we will send these out. So don't worry, we'll send you the links to all of these so that you can connect up. We've also got a LinkedIn group. We've got a Twitter account for the profession, and we've also got a YouTube channel with some videos and some case studies that are really interesting. So please do get joined up and get connected. So that gives you a bit of a flavour for what's going on with the development of the project profession for the NHS. Now I'd like to introduce you to Martin Paver. I'll stop sharing that. And Martin is going to tell you about the education programme that he delivers for Project Data Analyst. So Martin, do you want to share your slides?
Sorry, Martin, you're on mute there.
It's the phrase of the year, isn't it?
Yeah, schoolboy error. So many times I've heard that over the past 7 months or so. Right, sorry about that. I do apologise. So I'll start again. So thanks a lot, Joe. Really appreciate the opportunity, and thanks a lot to everybody else for giving up their lunchtime as well. So this session today, I'm going to speak to you for about 40 minutes to talk about the Project Data Analyst Apprenticeship. In terms of apprenticeships as well, don't think about sort of 1980s, 1990s apprenticeship. Those days have moved on. It's basically a pool of cash sat inside of your organisation, which is taken off you by the taxman, and it's kept there to upskill people with substantial new skills. So that's what we're trying to do, is to upskill people and sort of get them ready for this really exciting future. So I'll talk about that future now. With me, I've lost my third screen. It's just glitched on me. Just bear with me. Right, there we go, back again. So in terms of project data analytics, why is it important and what's it going to do for us? So I'm going to talk about a major project that everybody knows about. So I'll talk about Crossrail. So it's a big project in London. It's a once through organisation. So Crossrail has been constructed back in 2010, something like that. The team came together for one purpose. And Crossrail is now starting to disband because its job is complete. It then starts to move over to Rail for London. So basically the data in red is the data that comes out of the programme and is then fed across to Rail for London, and it's used for maintaining the railway. All the data in blue is a load of data that comes out the back of the project as a big exhaust plume. And there's data there on schedules, change control, financial control, health and safety, procurement, etc. If we drill down into that data, there's something like 26,000 changes, and this is based upon 2018 data, so that's now probably close to 40,000 changes. It was 3 billion of risk and contingency, and now that's gone up to 6 billion. So there's some big numbers in there. So we talk about this learning legacy, and this learning legacy tends to be lessons learned reports, and Crossrail's got its own website, which is the learning legacy, but it's not really picking up this intrinsic data. And it's these data are elements that start to give us the insights, which we can push through machine learning and various other methods, where we can start to predict some of these failures in the future. And that's a really, really rich data set. Now, in terms of projects, if you've only got one project going through, then so you can argue that there's no other projects the same as it, so what's the point keeping the data? Now, at a functional level, there's a load of similarity between these projects. But in terms of Crossrail, we're just about to do HS2, which is a load of track, it's a load of stations, it's some tunnels, etc., and some brand new rolling stock. So it's a very, very similar problem to Crossrail. And as part of Crossrail, there's no part of that contract that says you've now got to leverage this data for the benefits of those people who follow you. Now that's the same on every single project which I've identified in the past sort of 3 or 4 years. There's loads of projects where this exhaust plume comes out the back of the project and we don't use it. And it's the same in the NHS as well, I'd imagine. So I'm going to talk through some different use cases now, and in terms of these opportunities, of which they are vast. So a lot of this is white space at the moment, and it's basically unexplored lands. I'll start to drill down into these examples one by one, and I've got some more examples in following slides as well. The first one is in terms of risk. If we're doing something like an IT project, we can understand what sort of risks are probably going to be sort of emergent on those projects. We can look at the probability and the impact of those risks are based upon everything that's gone before. We can look at the snowballing of those risks as well, and the rate of change of those risks. So when they start to emerge, what's the window in which they emerge, and what's the impact of those risks? If we mitigated them successfully in the past, then what was that mitigation? What's the secret sauce in there? And what can we do to leverage that in future projects? And I've lot of that in the moment in terms of risk registers. It tends to be locked away, and we're looking forwards. We don't tend to look backwards on that risk data set. Similar sort of thing for schedule and for cost as well. So we can look at benchmarking, we can look at likelihood of variance, the triggers, opportunities for cost reduction as well, and the influence of market conditions. So based upon where the market is, then what can you look for in terms of overall cost reduction? Or if the market's quite hot, then what does that mean in terms of cost escalation? So we can look at things like quality as well. So compliance to process. So you probably do your own assurance processes at the moment. So if you're doing an assurance process, instead of doing it manually and just going through lots of files, you can bring automation to it, and you can bring some advanced techniques to it. You can look at lead indicators when things are going to go wrong, and known areas of concern, the probability based upon the situation, etc. So there's loads of stuff you can do in quality. Stakeholders as well, so that those stakeholders who tend to emerge late and give you a lot of grief, the volatility, and conversely, those stable stakeholders as well. It's those stakeholders who you can really depend upon to support you on your project. You can look at their influence and their impact in the past as well, and start to work out what the best engagement strategies are dynamically. So resources and team as well, that's another one about workforce planning, lead indicators, velocity of your team as well. So if you're working in the agile space, it's making sure that they're fully employed all the time and keeping the velocity going. And benefits and outcomes. So what we don't tend to do with benefits is say, this is what we planned, this is what we achieved. What's the rationale for that shortfall? Which of those benefits are predisposed to shortfall, or which ones are almost bankers? And what do we do about the measured benefits and the lead indicators and benchmarking? Change and change management is all about the volume of change. Is that coming from the clients? Is it coming from the suppliers? Is it because you didn't get your specification right at the start? If you can understand that predisposition, then can you start to do something to engage with it? Commercial issues as well. So what is your predisposition to dispute on certain parts of a contract, certain bits of a work breakdown structure, or certain suppliers? And you can look at plan versus outturn. So there is so much we can do, and a lot of this is white space. And I've been in project management for the last 30 years, and I think this is the biggest opportunity that I've ever seen to really change the industry. So in terms of a few more examples, transformation projects, we can look at benefits libraries, likelihood of success. We can look at the planning of the risks, windows of influence, all that sort of stuff. Digital and IT projects, we can leverage this experience. It's not lessons learned. I've spent probably 2 years doing a load of research on lessons learned, and they don't work. So what we tend to do is we take an abstraction of what went on, we summarize it into a paragraph or two, and then we write it down, and it really gets looked at again. So what we're talking about now is to use this data, and this data can flag up known areas of concern. If we know that in real time, then we can start to take account of that and change the way we manage projects. So we can do things like fractal planning as well. So we know that there's a certain schedule for a certain component. So let's keep using that time and time again and adjusting it. And we get that feedback loop between planned and actual. So those estimates get better and better and better. And we can look at the factors of influence as well. We can do loads of things on automated reporting and automated assurance as well. And that moves you up the value chain. So instead of doing all the donkey work that we tend to do in the project profession, it then moves you up the value chain where you start to get into predictive insights. Service improvements is more on there and more on workforce planning as well. You can come back to that. And if we drill down into workforce planning, so I pulled this from your website. So there's something about operational workforce planning, and there's loads you can do in this space. So it's the analytics about the frequency of updates. Instead of you going in and saying this is what the assurance is telling us, basically you just do some Python scripts and you pull all that out. You can do performance assessment and assurance activities through data analytics as well. Instead of being these generic lessons learned I've talked about, you actually bring it based upon the constraints of the project and what you want to do about the project, effectiveness of risk management, etc. Something else we can do as well, if you've got meetings, that you can read the transcript of meetings, and you can start to say, in terms of the meeting was 2 hours long and only 5% of the time they talked about workforce planning. So you can then feed that back into your sort of analytics. And that means then you don't need to keep filling these forms in all the time because they fill themselves in. You start to get indicators and you can run that through a dashboard. So it starts to really change the nature of your job and becomes a lot more forensic in terms of the application of that data. But it's not just about the exhaust plume. It's about doing things like automating these repetitive processes as well. So what we can do is we can apply tools such as UiPath and Microsoft Automate in terms of Power Automate and Power Flow. And basically anything where you've got multiple screens and you're cut and pasting data or you're scraping data from websites or things like that, basically we can stop doing it now. So once again, it then pushes you up the value chain because you can then get into the more interesting work about predictions. So that capability is with us today. It's all deployable today. We just need the will to go and implement it and make it happen and to show people the light in terms of these possibilities. So what we've done in response to all of that is we've created this brand new apprenticeship. So it's based upon the data analyst apprenticeship, but it's been really tailored around a project delivery context. So we're trying to create these pie-shaped people. So it's a people with a broad understanding of the business. They've got one leg in project delivery and they've got one leg in data analytics. And it means that if you've not got people who's just jumping in, they don't really understand the context and they don't understand the question and the rationale, basically you've got somebody with the domain context who can start to deploy this. So in terms of these people, it's not a standard data analyst apprenticeship, so it's the same syllabus with a different focus. We drill into project related challenges and obstacles. We've got a hackathon coming up this weekend and we're looking into schedules, looking at health and safety risks. We're looking at reporting, that thing I talked about in terms of bringing the transcription from a Teams meeting and then extracting the actions, pushing those actions into a flow so it comes and nags you on a regular basis, and then you can run a dashboard about your team's performance on closing down actions. So that's just something we're doing at the weekend. We've got these speakers coming from around the world as well, and I tend to sniff them out and I know where they are because it's quite a small community of about 50 people. We dig deeper into automation and machine learning as well. We talk about data trust, and that's not part of the core syllabus, but we talk about it because we think it's important and where the industry's heading as well. It's all focused upon real data with real problems. So there's nobody else who's working in this space as we are. What we've also got is these pathfinder people, right? So we're creating pathfinders. It's these people who's going to work in that white space and do things that's never been done before. And it's pretty cool. It's emerging tech. It's emerging capabilities in project data analytics. So it's something that's really groundbreaking, and it's going to give you career certainty for the next 10 years. And it's a pretty cool job. These people at the moment are pretty rare. It's very difficult to find them. So this is an interesting report that came out a couple of weeks ago. So it's from the World Economic Forum, and it talks about increasing demand. And you'll probably see on that list is number 11 is project managers, but at the top of that list is data analysts and data scientists. So if we can merge those two roles together, it's going to be a rapidly increasing demand for these sort of people. So I think it's a really interesting role and a very varied role as well. So in terms of the apprenticeship, it's delivered as part of this overall ecosystem. So we've got these meetups, which are every 2 weeks, and we've got a community of over 6,000 people. You're encouraged to come along to these hackathons, which give you some practical experience of solving problems as well. So we bring together disparate teams of people and we solve a problem in 2 days, and I'll show you some examples in a bit. We've got an expert network as well of Microsoft MVPs, so these most valuable professionals, and they come along and teach as well. We've got the apprenticeship, we're trying to drive innovation, we're trying to drive this democratization as well. So a lot of this is about Microsoft libraries of automation code and Power BI and robotic process automation, etc. If we can start to pull that, then we all move a lot quicker. And at the middle of it all is this concept of a data trust, where we start to pool this data, which everybody can benefit from, and we all start to move quicker. But it's got to be done securely because there's some sensitive data out there. So in terms of the team of people, so myself, I'm a fellow of the APM, a chartered project professional, as a chartered engineer. I've led a $1 billion project, nuclear project. I've been a program director in MOD for $600 million worth of research projects, and I've also been a portfolio lead as a contractor working with MOD on ICT projects. So I've seen projects firsthand. I've also worked on a lot of data projects in the last few years. James Smith has got a PhD in applied maths. He really understands full stack development, artificial intelligence, data engineer, robotic process automation. Vicky supports as well, and she's a ninja in the apprenticeships and teaching and making sure we follow all the rules and don't get beaten up by Ofsted. We've got Ben, who has got a master's in stats as well. He's a data scientist. And we've got Mark Wilcock that comes along and teaches you as well, and he's another MVP. So we've got a pretty A team really, and we really understand this stuff. We're approved by the Education Skills Funding Agency, and we're approved with BCS as well. So what that means is you can get 2 qualifications out of it on top of your foundation degree, which is a BCS level 4 certificate and a diploma as well. So we see this as the ground floor of something really, really big. So I think you probably need to decide, if you want to get into this, where do you want to be? Do you want to be playing as a translator? And that means that you've got to sit between the data analysts, data scientists, and the project teams and try and facilitate and to get some answers and to encourage innovation and exploration. A general practitioner means you can probably do everything. So you know how to use Power BI, DAX functions, Python, etc. And a specialist practitioner means you probably go deep into something. You might go deep into Power BI, or you might go deep into machine learning or something like that. And that will become emergent as you start to get experience with this through the apprenticeship. So in terms of what the standard says, so there is a standard for a data analyst that's on the apprenticeship websites. It's about all these things here. And you've got this slide deck as well. I've shared it with Joe. So if you're interested in this, you can drill into it. But it's about managing, cleansing, abstracting, and aggregating data. But most importantly, it's about getting insight from that data. So it's not just being a tool jockey who's trying to use these tools. It's about really sitting back from the problem, working out what you're trying to achieve, and then driving it forward from that basis. So what's really interesting as well, there's such a thing as a level 3 project controls apprenticeship, and what they teach you is how to use Primavera P6 and scheduling and risk management. You know, they teach you all about the things that project controllers have been doing for the past 30 years. If you Google the definition and it's the first thing that comes up on Google, it doesn't say that you need to know about risk management and all these other things. It says it's about data gathering, data management, and being able to predict influence, right? All those things are associated with project data analytics, and that's what we're trying to do, and that's why we think it's a very, very different future to the one that the industry at the moment, you know, and what people have been trained to do. So we think it's quite disruptive, but it's exactly where various other sectors are going and where we should be going. So some people said to me, well, what we're going to do is bolt on a data scientist team, and we'll have a centralized team of people. Now, if they do that, they're going to start to chew away at your job. So they'll start to do your reporting for you, they'll start to do some automation of your jobs, and they'll start to do some of the top end insight parts of your job. So what is then left? You know, what's the runt of what's left? If instead we could say, let's start to upskill everybody in advanced data analytics so they can all do this stuff, it becomes a toolkit as part of your job, and you just start to drive it forward as part of your toolkit. You probably still need a data scientist for the really top end challenges, stuff that you can do by yourself. So the argument that we tend to say is back in the 1960s, we had a centralized typing pool because we didn't have all these capabilities to type and to do word processing individually. Once Microsoft came along with the word processors, then that typing pool started to fall to bits. It's exactly the same now, is that Microsoft's coming along with low code solutions where once you're trained up in a load of this stuff, then you can start to do it yourself. So we don't necessarily need these centralized teams. It becomes part of everybody's job. You just need to be really good at it, and then you can get the maximum benefit from your data and really start to change your role. Some example cohorts as well. There's a load of companies involved and a lot more beyond that as well. We've got more in the pipeline. And in terms of current roles, we've got a director coming from Gleeds, so he's quite a senior guy. We've got project managers junior through to senior project managers, some of them in the 40s. And we've got PMO people who's just started out through to fairly senior people working at board levels, so PMO reporting, corporate reporting, etc. And the age group spans 90, one guy in his 60s. So it's not just for youngsters, this, you know, it's for anybody who wants to acquire some substantial new skills and to get ready for this really exciting future. So when you're doing this work as well, you need to think about what your project data strategy is. So is your strategy at the moment as part of your organization? Is it about gluing together a load of separate tools? Is it about utilizing a platform that you can go and buy? Or is it leveraging data? So it might be working with a client if you're sort of got an internal relationship with somebody else in your enterprise, then it's an internal client. Is it your suppliers, etc.? If you can start to leverage all of that, then data becomes your driving force. It's not the app that you're using. So you've got to make sure you don't get vendor lock-in and you're working towards getting loads and loads of insights from this data. So some people said to me, we've got guys on the apprenticeship at the moment. I've got 2 guys in my own team who's got masters. And they said to me, basically, I've got a degree and I've already got a master's. Should I be doing this? And I've got another guy who's 19 who's come straight from school, right? So I've got a mixed bag. And the master's people have said to me, I've already got a master's. Is this beneath me? And it's a different set of skills basically. A master's teaches you about the theory. It teaches you about machine learning theory and things like that. And what we tend to do as part of the foundation degree is teach you how to do it. So it's very practically driven, and it enables you to get your insights so you can then start to do this thing in a work environment, a practical work environment. So that's the main difference. So I think today, what everybody needs in project delivery is these fundamental skills about knowing what tools to apply in what situations, whether it's statistically representative to be able to do it, etc. In due course, as we get really good at it and the data starts to grow, then we can start to move into the masters type capabilities. But I think at the moment the data is so poor and you've not got enough of it, we're not really thinking like this, is if you brought in a PhD to do some of this stuff today, you'd probably struggle because there's not enough for them to do because you haven't got the quality of data and the data pipelines in place. So that's why I think it's a very practical qualification, and I think it's perfect for the current environment. So these are some of the things we did in the previous hackathon. So it's a weekend hackathon. There's a team of 6. In terms of this weekend's hackathon as well, there's a £3,000 a prize pot in there, and £2,000 goes to the winning team. And these teams are formed on the Saturday. They all come together and they solve these challenges. So one team looked at the quality issues with data, and it looked at the predisposition to quality issues and starts to get some insights into quality issues. So they solved that in a weekend. And this is the one that should have won, but I'm not quite sure why it didn't. But cracking. So Baker Hughes, which is an oil and gas company, pulled together 96,000 activities from a load of projects, and they said, can we find out which parts of those projects keep going wrong? And we put an original estimate in for the various parts of the work breakdown structure. Were those estimates wrong, and do we need to go back and revise the estimate? So they pulled together a load of Power BI views, which enabled them to drill down into where their plan was going wrong and consistency in terms of that variance as well. And then they ran machine learning on it, so they can then start to predict durations and levels of confidence. So it's something that would normally take you a couple of years to do. They did it in 2 days, which is really cool. And we'll teach you how to do this sort of stuff. So it sounds really complicated, but the tools do a lot of it for you. All we need to do is to show you the light and show you the art of the possible. So what we're also trying to do is democratize these basics and to give some of this stuff away. But if you give it away, you still need to implement it. So you can't just plug in a dashboard, for instance. It needs to be integrated with your data and the data engineering and the databases that go with it. We'll teach you about adaptive dashboards as well. So if you are a project director, it'll give you one view. If you are the finance director, it's going to give you another view, all based upon the same data cube, basically. So if we can start to pool all of these basics, then we can all start to move a lot quicker. So that's what we're trying to do, is to pull together people from different sectors to come along and solve these problems collegiately. So that's the main pitch for the apprenticeship itself and why we need to do it. It's really groundbreaking. We've got the APM, we've got the PMI behind this as well. We've got a task force that's now set up as well. I'll talk about that in a bit. So this is really cutting edge, and I think it's going to give you career certainty for the next 10 plus years, and it's a really exciting job. So I'll now talk about the apprenticeship structure. So what we do, we register you as a learner. So in apprenticeship world, you're not called a student, you're called a learner. And we take you through these modules. So there are various modules, and they're all set by BCS, and through their syllabus, we then bring in some extra modules, which is called enrichment. So it's really focused around a project delivery environment. And once you finish those modules, and that's all distance learning, and I've got the next slide is going to walk you through in terms of frequency of teaching, it then triggers a gateway. And what that gateway does then, it's a meeting between us, your employer, and yourself. And that says, are you now ready to proceed to this endpoint assessment? So it's not like in the old days where you used to go and sit down and do lots of exams, but you do need to do exams as part of the BCS work, but it's multi-choice. In terms of this endpoint assessment, it's a synoptic project, so they set it for you and you've got 5 days to complete it over 2 weeks. And then you've got an interview, and it's just basically show me your portfolio of stuff you've been doing. So they look at that, they look at your work output, and they look at your employer reference, and they would give you a grade, which is pretty cool. So it's fairly straightforward. It's nothing to be really scared about if you've done the work. So if you're not good at exams, it's a better way of studying and trying to get a qualification. So in terms of commitments, government stated that apprenticeships need to be 20% off the job training. So rather than coming along every Friday, for instance, we'd rather do it in blocks. So we've got 2 intensive weeks. So one is in month 1 or 2, and that's a total of 10 days. We've then got these hackathons, and they tend to be at a weekend. And they're at a weekend because we can attract a load of other people to come along, and you get a really rich team and a really rich experience. And in the physical world, it tends to be done in London, and we have a great time. There's some fantastic food from this French cook. We have a free bar in the evening. It's a really great event. We can't do that at the moment for obvious reasons, but if we can put that back on again in the future, then that'd be really cool. So it's 4 hackathons, which is a weekend. We bring you in on the Friday, and we run you through a load of things to make sure you're ready for the weekend. We've then got half a day to follow up on the hack and just say, you know, what was your experience, the thing you struggled with, etc. We learn from that. We've then got these meetups, which tend to be in London, but they're not at the moment. They're all online. And that's where we invite these guest speakers in around 6:30 in the evening. So we start with you at 12. We teach you till about 5 o'clock. We start again at 6:30 till about 8 o'clock, and that's the day. So we invite a lot of guest speakers in. There's then self-study, drop-in mentoring, endpoint assessment, etc. In terms of that 20% off the job training as well, it doesn't mean that you're sat there doing a load of stuff that your sort of organisation doesn't care about because it's just standard syllabus. What we try and do is solve your problems. So if you can come along with a hackathon challenge, which other people can contribute to, then you can do a big part of your job through the apprenticeship and solve problems through the apprenticeship. And that's what we try to encourage. So that's what Baker Hughes are doing. That's what Sir Robert McAlpine's doing. A chap from Mace is doing it as well. So in terms of our response to COVID-19, all training is through Zoom at the moment. And we've got this new tool at the weekend called Discord, which enables us to work in a group environment as well. It's pretty cool. So if you want to start this as well, the next cohort starts on the 16th of November. We can get you through if your organisation can respond quickly enough. So there's still plenty of time, although it's tight. Syllabus delivery. It's not just about learning about data science and using the tools. It's about understanding the theory as well. So it's top level theory, teaching you about stats, so you don't start to get the wrong conclusions from your data. Start to talk about concepts as well. We also talk about data quality and data security and things like that. Technical competencies, so you can do this stuff. You can drive Python. You can do some coding as well. You don't need to be a programmer to do this. It's just understanding code. Even in Power BI now, which looks like a simple tool, if you want to get good at it, you've got to code through something called DAX. It's fairly straightforward once you know what you're doing. It's about behaviors as well. It's being able to solve problems and to lead and influence people as well. And data science is very much about influencing people. It's taking insights from that data and influencing major decisions. So we talked about these knowledge modules. I went through this before. So it's all coming from BCS, and I talked about the endpoint assessment. Knowledge competencies, data protection, legal issues, data lifecycle, types of data, data structures, quality issues as well, which are significant, I think, in the project domain. Making sure we really understand these customer requirements. So you don't just jump straight into Power BI, as you really start to think about what the problem statement is that you're trying to answer. In terms of technical competencies, it's all these things here. So it's about identifying, collecting data, reporting, getting your data sets right, manipulating data sets, governance, database queries, and our analytical techniques as well, data mining, time series forecasting, etc. Some of that sounds complicated. It's not, you just need to learn the language associated with it. And we've got loads of material as well, which will help you to do this. And we put some add-ons as well. So we bring in automation. We do app development as well using Microsoft Power Apps. So you can write your own apps, which is pretty cool. And you can use it at work. And we teach you about machine learning as well. Behavioral competencies. I've talked about this. It's about developing this pioneer role as well, which I think is really exciting. In terms of this capability, I think that's quite a good screen grab for you. It shows you the sort of things that you'll be able to do at the end of this. So you can do things like web scraping. So you can go onto a website and take a load of content out of the website and then pull that into a data set and go and analyze it. And you can see if that data is changing over time. So it's all those things on there that you'll be able to do on one page, basically. And somebody asked me to do that a few presentations ago, so that's what I've done. So it's there as a point of reference. In terms of gateway, we talked about the Endpoint Assessment Gateway. Basically, it's 15 months into the program, so it's a 15-month program. We would trigger the gateway. It's then down to a BCS to facilitate this gateway review, and they bring in somebody independent, and they would interview you. So in terms of the gateway assessment, and what is it? So it's this portfolio of everything you've done. And that's why we're keen to run these hackathons as well, because it shows you've done some cool stuff. You've got a good story to tell as well. So it goes on your CV and you look different, right? There's not a lot of people doing this. And there's even less people who can explain it. So if you could say that you did some cool stuff and you can put the context on it, then it makes you different. It's about the employer's reference as well, the interview, and this synoptic project. So it's a project which is set by BCS. They give you a choice of 5 basically, and you've got to throw a load of capabilities at it over 5 days and basically show the examiner at the endpoint assessment what you can do. And in terms of further details, if you look on our website at projectingsuccess.co.uk, you'll see something on there about the sort of things we do and the apprenticeship. And there's a flyer as well, so there's a PDF on there. So you click on the flyer and you find out more. So if you've got any questions, then please get in touch. I've posted my email address in chat. First intensive starts the first week following all of these. So the 16th of November is just an hour, basically just to make sure you know what you're letting yourself in for. We drop you in gently, make sure you got your IT sorted. And then the following week it starts in earnest with an intensive. So that's it.
Okay, fantastic.
Hopefully that was useful. And if you've got any questions, then please let me know.
That's fantastic. Thank you, Martin. Can I ask if anybody's got any questions to stick their hand up? I mean, in Teams, and we'll come to you directly. Mike and I have been answering a few questions in the chat.
So in terms of cost, there's no cost to the learner. It's all paid for through your levy. Basically, government takes the tax off employers. That sits in your accounts and you can draw down on it. And our fees are inside of the cap, so there's no extras to pay on top of that. And so it's not funded by your organisation. You don't have to get a separate budget for it. It's all part of this levy pot. And most companies, so I spoke to Environment Agency, and they only spend 23% of their levy at the moment. So a lot of people just don't spend the levy.
Yeah, Mike and I were on a call earlier with the HROD team in HE to talk about accessing the levy and the number of people that we can put through apprenticeships each year.
Right, cool.
And
You've got an echo there, Joe.
I don't know what's causing that.
Okay, sorry.
I don't know if somebody else has got it on. Does anybody have any questions that they would like to ask Martin right now? Everybody's very quiet. We've answered a few questions in the chat. Anybody want to stick their hand up and ask a question directly?
I'll ask one, Martin.
Oh, Sunday is asking a question. Let's get Sunday to... Yeah. Sunday, do you want to ask you a question?
Yes, please. Hi, Martin. I just want to be clear. How long exactly is this training? Is it because I heard you said 2 months?
No, it's 15 months, right? So a 15-month scheme, of which there are about 65 days of work. So it's 20% off the job training over 15 months.
Thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure. Something.
Lovely, thank you. Any other questions? Stick your hand up. Mike, you've got a question.
I have, yeah. How long have you been running this for, Martin?
It started.
And how many of those? What's the sort of conversion rate? How successful is it compared to the number of people that go on to pass the course?
So we started it in February, right? And it took us basically about 14 months to get certified because government closed the sort of scheme down for a little while, and just sort of repurposed it. So it took us a long time to get certified. So it's been going since February, and we've got a lot of organisations on board since February. So it's really sort of getting some traction with project delivery organisations. In terms of conversion rates, there's been a few people dropped out, and most of those have been where they've changed company. You know, they've left the company and gone somewhere else. We've not lost anyone yet, thankfully, through COVID redundancies or anything like that. And we're getting great feedback as well. So we're getting 4.7 out of 5 feedback. Yeah, it's really good.
Wow, brilliant. Thanks, Martin.
Excellent. There's a question from Emma. Will this be convertible to a degree in the future?
So what you can do with apprenticeship, so what they try and do is to move you from a level 4 to a level 6 to a level 7 over time. So I think you've got to say, do you want to go through that progression route? So in terms of project data analytics, would you like to move up the spectrum, or would you like to go and do something, for instance, in data science, or would you like to do something in project management? So you can do a level 6 project management apprenticeship in due course. So there's loads of different things you can choose to do. I think you just got to see this as a stepping stone in your overall journey of lifelong learning, you know, and it's a set of tools that you probably need to pick up.
One of the things in terms of the various education programs that we are developing at the moment, in talking to the provider for the level 6, the BSc in project management, what they said is that anyone who had a level 4 would have accreditation for prior learning, but also they would assess people who had prior learning through other qualifications as well, to determine what's the right starting point for people on that program. So if you've got a level 4 qualification that you've passed that, then you would likely to skip the first year of the level 6 program and go in at in the second year. So that's how that would kind of work and lead into that. Vanessa, you've got a question.
Yes, hi.
Hey.
I was just wondering, because it's 20% of the job as a HE employee, and you also mentioned that you like people to bring their work problems or what they're working on. Does it mean that you need to have a certain role or job title to be able to do the apprenticeship? What's the ideal role?
I think Joe's better off asking, sort of answering that question. But from our perspective, we've got all sorts of people, right? We've got health and safety professionals, we've got reporting people, we've got project engineers, project managers, building information modeling, all sorts of people. I think it's got to be appropriate to your role because you need to be able to practice it. If you don't practice it, you're going to learn a load of stuff and you're not going to get the benefit of it. So you need to be a practitioner of this stuff. So you need to be touching data at the moment, basically.
So I think, Vanessa, what we're looking at is where people have got it as part of their role. Obviously, they can use it and apply it in practice, because part of the obviously the requirement is for it to be applied, and you do the learning by doing. But what we're also looking at is how can we support people that are interested in moving into this area to be sort of part of a pipeline group where we work with various functions in the organisation to support them to get an opportunity to apply it, even if it's not necessarily fully part of their current job. And we need to identify who would be interested in doing it but doesn't necessarily have it as a fundamental part of their role at the moment. So part of that will fit in with the kind of the applicability assessment in terms of you know, for the people who are interested, can you apply it directly? Is there something we would need to do to support that and change that and give access to it to enable you to apply that learning. So we'll do that as part of the assessment process to look at, you know, are people able to do it as part of their role currently, or do we need to adapt to support that?
Thank you. Thanks.
Okay, fantastic.
Vanessa.
Lovely. Any more questions? Have we got any more questions? Mike, anything in the chat?
There was one from Fran around would it be possible to get a taster to get a feel for if this course is right for them or not? And I think you've included a YouTube link there, Martin.
Yeah, it's something James did last week. So James is
Right.
the main man on the teaching. James did something last week. So it was a 2-hour session. And we just ran you through why, you know, all these different tools as well. So we explain what Python does, we explain what Power BI does. So if you're scared about all this stuff and you don't know what it all means, then just watch that. And it's better as well. So instead of watching it physically, you can watch it on times 1.5 and save yourself a bit of time.
Do it fast.
Yes.
Okay, that's great. And if people have a look at that, and if there's anything more that they want in terms of you know, an understanding of it, then come back to us and we can talk to Martin about that and what that might look like. I think just following up, there's been a couple of people mention about that fit into that category of they're not currently in a role that would give them enough access to this. And again, talking to the HR and OD team this morning, obviously one of the really big programs of work at the moment is the people plan. As part of that is the best place to work. And part of that is about supporting people with career development, learning and development, and their professional development. So, and again, we can look to get support from people's organisations to support them with the opportunity to develop that as part of that organisation's commitment to making it the best place to work. So I think we've got some leverage there. Sid, did you want to ask a question? That's great.
Yeah, sorry, you probably gathered this, but I'm quite interested in the course. It's kind of the stuff that I would like to know more about it. So from my point of view is since if it becomes available, I would like to do it. So what are the steps? What am I looking to do? What am I supposed to send an email to your team to just verify this, or? Yeah.
So in terms of next steps, and what we would be doing next is basically we will send the information from this out to everybody. Anybody who is interested in exploring this further, you've kind of seen this and you go, yeah, I'd be interested in finding out more about things like the application process and all of that and how to get involved. We will then do something for those people specifically. So if you let us know, and we'll send out a questionnaire to see whether or not you're interested in exploring this further. We will be then working with the HR team to look at an application process. And again, each organisation is individual, so we need to support and get the guidance out there for that. But once we know who's interested, we can work with that group of people to help them on the journey to get registered and set up, and for when it suits them. Because there was a question in there about when does this program run, and Martin was saying to us the other day that it runs, it sort of starts every sort of 2 months. So there's a rolling cohort of people starting the program. So it isn't a one-off opportunity. It's going to be an ongoing opportunity. So if you aren't in a position to do it right now, or where we're looking at the moment, which is probably January as a first cohort, there will be ongoing opportunities as every couple of months. And what we will do is we work with the HR and OD teams to look at a pipeline of people to be able to apply to go on the starting dates that kind of suit them and allows it to fit in with both the program timescales and their lives. So we'll do that. So we'll follow up with that. And then I think it's also, so getting the organisational process sorted out, the application process sorted out, and the procurement process sorted out, and also then making sure that those people who are interested, we work with you as a group to get you through all the processes and the kind of information that's required to get you registered for when you want to start and when the organisation is able to support that. So any other questions? We've got 4 minutes left. I've kind of covered the things I think I wanted to mention on the next steps, but if anybody's got anything in terms of what they would like to hear next, do let us know. Stick your hand up and shout out.
There's some constraints as well, Joe. So basically, the Education Skills and Funding Agency said that by the end of this scheme, they'd like you to pass your maths and English, so it's the equivalent of a GCSE. So if you've got those, then great. You don't need to do that bit, but if you've not passed them, you'll need to do a further study. Now, it's all distance learning stuff. We pay a second company to do that. It's not part of the core qualification, but it's insisted on by the Education Skills Funding Agency. It's just trying to lift everyone's technical capability in maths and English, basically.
But it's not actually the full GCSE, is it? It's just
No.
a separate kind of basic assessment that
Yeah.
covers the level they require.
Yeah.
And in terms of other requirements?
You've got to have lived in the EU for the last 3 years, or be a citizen or a resident, I think they call it. So if you're a foreign national from outside the EU and you've come in the last 3 years, then you've got to wait 3 years until you can do this course, basically.
Sunday, you've got a question?
Yes, I do. It's around the maths and English. So my foundations has not been in the UK. My maths and English, I had it in Nigeria. However, I have a master's in the UK as well, in project management.
So what we can do is I think it's NARIC or something like that. We apply to them and they look at equivalency and we get a certificate off them, and then that's good enough for government, I think.
Brilliant, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have 2 minutes left. I think, any last questions before we...
Is it worth a quick show of hands as well in terms of the number of people who's probably interested in this?
Yeah, who's interested in exploring this further and would like to perhaps, be involved in the kind of next step? This isn't a commitment, but it's just understanding from our point of view how many might be interested.
Cool.
Let's see if we can count that. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6,
17, I think.
17.
Is that 17 hands up? Oh, yeah, it says at the top. That's handy. That's a quick way of counting them. Okay, fantastic. And there's also, if anybody is looking from the point of view of not them as the individual, but they're doing it for a team or for an organisation, and you're interested in the overall kind of approach and how to coordinate it within your organisation, do let us know, and we will support you with that. And we will also be sending out details and guidance for organisations to access this and how to go into it. So we've got most of those hands went down, but I've got 2 come back up. So Charlotte, is that a legacy hand, which is the other phrase for the year? Or Tola, did you want to ask a question, or were you just showing interest? What we could do with doing is capturing that so we know who those 17 are. So if you aren't interested in following this up directly, we won't bug you with lots of additional information. We also know that not everybody could stay for the whole thing. So what we'll do is we'll send out a quick questionnaire afterwards, along with the details and information, and make sure everybody has an opportunity to respond to that. But that was really useful to get an idea and indication. Okay, we are out of time. Martin, thank you very much. That was fascinating. Yeah, some great stuff in there. It's very exciting. And thank you all for
really, really exciting.
Yep, it is.
And the task force is going to be driving this forward. I think it's a brand new future for all of us, and I think as part of your Futures project, I think it's great. It really fits in well. Yeah. So thanks a lot to everybody. I do appreciate it.
Yep, thank you all for joining us. As I said, we will send out the slides, we'll send out the recording, and we'll also send out a questionnaire to see who would like to be involved in learning more. So thank you so much for your time today. It's been fantastic, and thank you for your input. And we look forward to probably catching up with you again soon. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thanks. Okay. Bye.
Thank you.
Okay, great. Mike, you stop the recording.